Are we going to get into stories here?
Yeah, we want it. We thought it'd be fun to hear some stories of your life. Anything that you wanted to say, or does anybody have a question to start? Mark and Aaron, you guys, if you have a question to ask Grandma and Grandma, something you want them, a story you want them to tell about when they were younger or about their lives or something.
What's the craziest thing you did, Grandpa?
I'm smart enough not to tell that.
Oh, you got me up for that.
Aaron even sat up. Can you remember when you left for college?
The bishop even told us that today.
That was a hot story.
Grandma's going to tell us about when he left for college.
No repeat.
You remember that?
That one he didn't have any pajamas?
No.
Well, I can't remember anything exciting about it.
You just went, huh?
It was just 60 miles from home.
But you lived with somebody else.
I lived with my great aunt and my sister.
Aunt Sally?
Aunt Irene.
Aunt Irene.
We lived she had a home there in Missoula at the time. And we roomed there with her, roomed and boarded there. We didn't have any money, of course. It cost $35 a quarter for tuition. And room and board was, Dad had a big garden and he shipped a lot of food up to Missoula there. And that's how we made it.
How you did it was just like that.
And they had a youth program with the college at the time with the government, NYA, National Youth Administration. It was during the Depression. And I applied for it, and I got $10 a month that I earned at 35 cents an hour.
Doing?
I was working in a botany lab, mounting dried plants on sheets of paper and so forth.
And that was that as a freshman? Did you know you wanted to go into forestry when you were a freshman?
Well, that's all he went into, yeah.
You started right away?
Yeah, it was a CAN program.
Oh, so you
forestry
didn't
school, 4 years straight through, no electives at all.
No, nothing but what you were required to take.
That's right.
It was colder in Missoula than it is in Provo, I'm sure.
I don't know.
Pretty cold, I guess, about the same. But you didn't have a car or anything, did you? Did you have your car then?
No. I didn't have a car until junior year. Another kid and I, Phil Muchmore, chipped in together and bought a Model T Ford for $25. Cost us $12.50 a piece.
Model T, huh?
Model
Yeah,
T.
a Model T.
Those things are hot looking.
And we drive back and forth with that.
You had to fix it up? Did you have to fix it up or was it in good shape?
Yeah, well, it needed some work on it. We paid $12 for a set of socket wrenches to work on a $25 car.
The tools were more than the car. I mean, almost half as much as the car. That's amazing.
It made it, though. The funny part of it was that, you know, as you said, it was cold country. And you couldn't keep antifreeze in those cars. They weren't tight enough to hold anything. So what we did was, in the morning, we'd go out with a tea kettle full of hot water and pour it in, and it'd just go into the head because the radiator was frozen solid. It'd just go into the head, and we'd crank it up and start it and drive to school. By the time we got to school, there was a plume of steam coming out of it about 30 feet high, you know. And it just timed it just right because the water was all gone by the time we got to school.
And it died.
And it just let her sit there. And when time to go home, we just pour some water in and head home again.
That was in the winter, in the real
Oh yeah,
cold.
that's in the frozen winter.
Was
Those were the days.
Okay.
What did you do in the summer?
No, touring car.
What did you do in the summer?
Summer was fun. What do you do in the winter? Frozen jacket. Yeah, that's what I was
one
thinking.
for you.
What, honey?
I have one for you.
You think taking a date was the interesting thing in that old baby, that old Model T Ford. Every once in a while, if it went over a bump, the top would drop. You'd have to shove it back in.
Just
Fall
like
down.
my car.
You didn't sit out there in the car and neck very long.
No, not that.
Well, they didn't do those things anyway in our day.
No,
He did. He did.
Grandma flapper?
yeah, in a way.
Grandma, were you a flapper during the roaring 20s?
I don't know. I doubt it.
I didn't know her then, so she can talk freely.
When did you start college? What year did you start college?
well, 31. I graduated in 31.
So she, from high school? So see, she really was behind. She
Wasn't in
not
the
Flappers.
20s.
The Flappers were in the 20s.
Flappers were earlier than I
They
was.
were
I was a
earlier.
little girl then.
Yeah, she was young. But she
I would have liked to have been.
she was
I
yeah,
probably was.
watching the older girls. Yeah. Actually, some pictures you have, Aunt Margie almost makes her look like that, but she was behind that time too. That was
Yeah.
she wasn't a flapper either.
No.
That was behind your age.
She was right in the middle of the Charleston era, so on.
Well, that's kind of flapper.
Right.
Yeah, I think it went into we think of it as the 20s, but it went through the Depression too, didn't it?
That was roaring 20s up into the
Up
30s.
into the early 30s. Yeah. So you wore the fringe. You did the Charleston.
Yeah, I did some Charleston, but I didn't wear any fringe clothes.
Or any of the things that you see.
I did well to have a Sunday dress.
I'm going to clap my hands.
And Grandma, what did you do when you went to college?
Well, we only went to St. George, see, so that wasn't a great big deal.
About the
We
same
didn't have a
distance.
car, so we had to always hitch a ride. And we had to go around, didn't go through the pass like we do now. I had to go around the mountain, and it was a long session. But I lived with my grandmother and one of my other cousins, one of the other girls. And I went through 2 years of college there, got a teacher's certificate, and then taught school for 10 years.
Yeah, tough to do that. She, your first teaching job, was that the one in Moapa? Tell them a little bit about this. This is Grandma's first job she had teaching.
And how old were you then? You'd been in school, you went to college for
2 years.
I was 21.
How old were you, Mom? 1 year.
Well, actually, I didn't have a school, and I was all packed and ready to go up to BYU to go on to school. Because I couldn't get a school, there just wasn't any jobs. And
No way.
then I got word that my cousin, who was teaching in Moapa, which is a little railroad town, nothing but a two-room school, had the job, and they found out that she couldn't keep the job. So she had to get the job up, and I got the job.
Oh.
So I unpacked,
And moved.
what I did is just moved down there. And I lived in what they call a teacherage, which was just a great big old barn room with a bed and a grumpy looking table in, and it was, and there was a teacher, one of the teachers who'd been teaching there for a while, lived on the other side of this. And we had to walk from, say, I would say from like here to out to Culver, maybe a little farther than that, across the desert, over the railroad track, up to the school from where we lived. And I was late getting there, and when I got there, I found out I had 13 little Indians in first grade. Some of them had been there this was their second year. Most of them didn't understand English, and I was supposed to teach them too. So it was really quite, I had the first 3 grades. I had first, second, third grade. So for my first year teaching was really quite a challenge, and yet I look back and I think it was lots of fun. I had a really, really fun time. By the end of the year, most of them could understand, you know. Some of them had been in the second year and they were reading some. And of course the white children, I had some white children too. And they were doing very well. But the climax of this story is, at the end of that year, I had to take a test to be able to teach again in Nevada. I had to take the state history test or the state test because I had gone to school in Utah and passed that. Well, I studied and studied and studied on it. And I took the test, and one question, 25 points of the question, was something to do with the finances of the school. I didn't know one thing about it, and I would have had to get 100% on everything else to pass, to be able to pass. Well, I missed by 1 point. and I already had a job in Overton to teach the next year. I failed, so I had to write the superintendent, or the principal down, the superintendent in Clark County, in our school, and tell him that I couldn't teach in Overton because I had failed this test. Well, if you don't think that was agonizing, I cried, and I was just sick, because I'm not good in math anyway. And I had not,
It's so
I
dumb.
mean, I had no
How good that is.
idea about financing that, the school. What, so anyway, then about a week later, he called and said that he had went to bat, and he said, no way, she's not be able to pass because of a dumb question like that, said they had no business in there. So then I taught school, then I moved to Overton the next year.
Anyone know where Overton is?
No.
Think Overton Beach.
Yeah,
I
it's
know the
just-
Overton ski rush, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's just up
Overton
the
Beach, where
road.
we go, like,
It's just up the road a ways to
just,
town.
just up.
right where we go across the lake.
Yes, on the way up a little bit.
Over to Loganville, we always pass that.
Yeah,
Right
that's,
together.
yeah, that's right. It's just down that valley.
Liza, you have a
Okay.
question for Grandma? What happened to Liza?